Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. The Earth is not another planet. This is an obvious conclusion you can draw when you look up at the sky. And there's really no reason on Earth, literally, why anyone would look up at the sun and the planets and the moon and assume that the Earth is another one of those planets. Of course, the globe is a consequence of this presupposition or this assumption for a model, the heliocentric model, that the sun is at the center and, for all intents and purposes, stationary. And it is the Earth that moves around, orbits around the sun, along with other planets, one of 9 planets, and also spins on an axis to give us night and day. None of these things are based in any scientific discovery. No one ever discovered curvature and then thought, oh, the Earth must be a globe then. No one ever saw the Earth from space as another planet. You understand? This wasn't a discovery. The globe was not discovered in the way things like the pyramids were discovered, or Antarctica was discovered, if it ever was. Yeah? Or even America. These are things that have been discovered and we know our reality. But the Earth being a globe spinning on its axis and orbiting the sun, nothing has ever been done in any scientific way to make such an assumption. And you'll know, if you've been investigating this or thinking about it in any way, that all the assumptions that the Earth is a globe are based on a collection of explanations of indirect evidence. And most of that so-called evidence is looking up at the sky. No one's ever measured curvature on the surface. No one's ever seen any curvature on the surface. So you get ridiculous, contradictory explanations that just result in cognitive dissonance when you assume that you can see the bottom of a ship disappearing down a curve a few miles in front of you, but at the same time you can't get high enough to ever see any curve, and you don't see any horizontal curvature because the Earth is demonstrably level. And even Einstein, one of the brightest minds that we all refer to when it comes to conceptualizing where we are in the universe and how it all works, even he admitted that there's no way of determining whether or not the Earth is moving. And so we find ourselves here back in Stellarium on the 24th of March, which was a really good day for looking at what's going on in the sky. So let's take a look at what we see happening in the sky and see if it correlates to any kind of assumption that we are just another one of these lights that we see in the sky up there with the sun. Now think about this: wherever you are on the Earth, you always see these things above you. Or they're just too far away to see, so they are beyond the horizon. And in that sense, you can just assume that they appear to be just where they do appear to be. And that is not very high up in the sky, somewhere very local compared to these models of infinite space and light years and all this stuff. This is again another problem that people have. They think that looking up at the stars means that you can see light years through a vacuous space. And so why can't we see across the surface of the Earth? That's the kind of indirect evidence and the explanations that you get when visibility on or above the Earth to great heights is often reduced to just a few miles. So it's never possible to see anything of any great distance, and you don't actually know how high things are in the sky. But if we just look, okay, we're going to go through the day here. We've got the sun coming up. This was a day when Venus was occulted by the moon here, as you can see rising. It was a new moon, so it was trailing the sun. But have a look at these. We've got Saturn over here. Don't worry about that too much. But have a look at the sun and see what it's doing. Now, one thing it's doing to start with is arcing across the sky from this view in Greenwich. Sorry, I should pronounce it correctly. Greenwich in London, England. From the equator, as you saw in the previous video, that puts someone down here, down south. If you look south for thousands of miles, about 6,000 miles, then that's where someone is on the equator. And that person on the equator would look up at these luminaries rising in the east, and they would go overhead, directly overhead. And so we can see straight away from this view that this is a side-on view. So we are very far away. We're a few thousand miles away from this going overhead for someone on the equator. That's simple enough to see. Just have a look how it arcs across the horizon. Okay? So people think that latitudes and longitudes and things like that are all a consequence of living on a globe. No. They are all just references for distances from a North Pole, or a certain distance or number of degrees from a heading. That's all they are, just distances. But look, we see this arcing across the sky. Now think about this. If we were looking at a sun 93 million miles away, and what's supposed to be a massive sun anyway, it wouldn't matter where you were on the Earth. You'd be on the equator, looking out to space here, or you'd be on, somewhere up north, like we are here, about 50 degrees, I think it is. I can't remember the exact figures, but here we are looking at a sun that's arcing over our head, arcing over the horizon. Really, if we were on a globe, apart from all the other things that don't even correlate with us being on a globe, we would see the sun go across the horizon in a straight line. But that would be absurd, wouldn't it? Because as you turn, you wouldn't, you turn like this, and there is no horizon behind you. There is no the rest of the north of the globe Earth behind you. Okay. Yeah. But really what would happen is if you're on a globe somewhere, you should have horizons in different places, and the sun should just go straight across your view, and then it would be blocked off by a horizon that would be going up to your right and off to your left as well. But no, the horizon is always flat all around us, and it's not suddenly dropping away because it's locally flat. It's always flat. It's flat forever. It's flat from here all the way down to the equator and beyond. Yeah? But look, okay, so that's one thing. First of all, the sun arcing across the sky, or doing these going from east to west across the sky overhead, is demonstrable. Is a demonstrable observation that we are looking at luminaries that are close, and we can get much further away from them if we travel a few thousand miles across the Earth's level surface. So you can see here that actually it's doing an arc which is just part of a circle. Yeah. Now the planets, Jupiter and Mercury there, they might well be going around the sun. But look what happens to them here. Look at the difference here. This is one thing I really want to have a look on. If this is accurate, which it appears to be in Stellarium, we've got this kind of distance here between the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus over here and the Moon. And that would be fairly consistent. Now, consider that what's supposed to be happening is, in a day, we're just supposed to be doing this rotation, and just for one day, it would be 180 degrees of rotation, not even a full 360 degree rotation of the Earth that's supposed to be spinning. So all of these things, given that even though they aren't doing a straight line across the sky anyway, but all of these luminaries, the sun and the planets or whatever, Mercury and Jupiter, they should stay in relatively the same position. Again, given that they're supposed to be millions of miles away, millions of miles apart each. I mean, Jupiter's supposed to be Jupiter's supposed to be one of these planets that's way, way beyond us, way much further out than the sun. I mean, but that aside, see what happens as they go across. Over here, we have this widening gap between the sun and Mercury. As it goes off to the horizon. Let's just turn that round a bit so we can see it a bit further. Okay, that might be better. Okay, they're fairly close together, but then it goes off into the distance. Okay, and we have the sun really increasing the gap. Okay, and then the gap closes up here, and up here we've got a very close gap between Mercury and the sun. And that can't be explained away by us being part of this massive, slowly, relatively speaking, moving solar system. And if we're just supposed to be spinning on the spot, or as we move slightly in our orbit, it would be incremental, it would be fractional, then we shouldn't see such a difference in the distance between the planets and the sun here and the planets and the sun there. Okay. Now they might well be keeping some kind of equal distance between each other, but that would only be apparent, or that would only appear to change based on the distance of all of them. Or maybe they are moving apart that rapidly. And the thing is, we are supposed to be in some kind of alignment with these planets as well, but they're up there, and it looks like we are all the way down here, doing some kind of, if this was us orbiting the sun, we would end up doing some kind of other movement around the sun. But no, these are just going across the sky. They might be orbiting each other and doing things. Hey, maybe the moon is doing something with the sun. Maybe the moon is just up there with the sun and orbiting the sun in some way. Maybe on a new moon you can't see it because it's just behind the sun. Ever thought about that? Why not? It's not impossible. Maybe all these so-called planets are just moons going around the sun. Maybe Venus is a moon going around the sun. So hey, maybe they are reflecting sunlight, and we see that from our position on Earth, down here, looking at what's going on up there in the big clock in the sky. So again, there's no reason to assume. It's just why? Why would you assume that the Earth is another planet? Well, because it works out as being an efficient way of molding everything into this model based on converting everything into degrees. And of course, 360 degrees gives you a complete circle. But look at how the difference in Jupiter, Mercury, and the Sun appears as they go across there. This isn't the Earth moving. This is those things moving. How they're suspended up there or whatever they're doing, who knows? But I don't know how a Swiss watch works. You could even open it up and it still wouldn't make immediate sense how you could stick that all together and make it work. So us mere humans on our level Earth, looking up at the luminaries doing this, we can tell the time. That's about all we can do. We can't be traveling to these things. What a ridiculous idea to think that you can actually get to the moon or get to one of these planets. All just total fantasy. all just imaginations, science fiction that mankind hasn't grown out of. Because when you do grow up a little bit, when you start to really try and investigate who you are and where we are, that's when you start realizing that you could have been so easily fooled, because that's what has happened to humanity throughout the ages, into believing something that you've never ever seen for yourself. I'm sure not many of us have actually seen this going on in the sky anyway. You wouldn't see this happening in the daytime anyway. But now we have the technology to see this. And again, I said, there's nothing wrong with this. It seems to accurately portray what we see happening in the sky. And so when we actually look at that critically, oops, sorry, wrong way, then we see that what we have is luminaries doing circuits in the sky, telling the time and the seasons for us. Thank you very much.